Hey everybody, welcome to episode 13 of How to Build a Game Studio. This week we kind of talk about our journeys and what led us to the point that we decided to make a game studio and build Winterborn. It'll be me, Kent, and Moudy on this week's episode, and we talk a bit about our history and what we went through to get to where we are today. So with that, let's just get into it. Thanks for listening. Hey everyone, I need to let you know you're being recorded.
You know, it says, I see it.
Yeah.
Privacy concerns.
Trevor's probably recording us. That's what it says.
That's true.
Trevor knows all.
I can see you. I can hear you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't have the webcam plugged in right now. You can't see me. Get the hell out of here.
I can still see you, Kent.
No.
with haxes.
I hate the haxes. Especially the haxes that allow you to go into a webcam that has no power. It's very impressive.
It's real good haxes.
So much access.
All right. God, I just stopped myself there.
What is happening? It's the
know.
worst intro ever.
I can't work like this. I'm out.
Yeah. Moudy, it's time to introduce the podcast.
Hello, guys.
Trevor, get this under control. No, Trevor gave up. All right, well, this has been our podcast. Tune in next week.
See you next week. That's it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of How to Build a Game Studio. I am Trevor Oz, and I am joined today by our studio head, Ken Gamble.
What happens if they listen to it out of order? Then it's not the latest. You can't say that.
But Kent, it's always the latest.
I don't know. I got my skeptical eyes on. You can't see.
Sometimes I do throw up repeats.
Oh, man.
But then it's the latest thing posted. So
You blew my mind, Trevor.
yeah. So it's still the latest. And speaking of the latest, we also have our artist extraordinaire, Moudy.
Salam, guys. How you doing?
What is that? The latest what?
I don't know. I was just trying to segue. All right.
Stops.
I'll take it. I'll take it. That's all I'm gonna say. I'll take it.
Don't judge me on my segues.
You have terrible segues.
I don't need this.
Man, I'm sorry, Trevor. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings.
I think you did.
I did. I always do. It's pretty much my greatest joy in life.
It's the bane of my existence. Anyway, we are full of life here on the podcast. So this week, we have an interesting topic. At least we think so. And where we talk about where we were, like where we were in our lives, or that moment that we decided that we wanted to get into video game development. And I think all of our answers will be fairly different, which should be interesting for everybody. So we're gonna make Moudy start.
What?
No, I'm just kidding, Moudy.
Moody's not ready.
So
he's just gonna take one of our answers.
If you say when I was 7.
he's gonna say Legacy of Kain.
He needed oxygen, so he decided to make video games.
When Sekiro came out, it's when I realized.
That's when Moudy realized, what am I doing with my life? Why am I not breathing?
Right.
So I'm going to begin a little bit. So for me, I pretty much have had like two passions in my life since I was around 10 years old, which has been video games and pro wrestling, which are two very different. Although pro wrestling and video games seem to go together a lot more than people realize.
They make
Which
good
is
games.
well, yeah. I mean, there's video games, but it seems like there's a lot of people in the video game industry that are super into wrestling too. So. If you follow a lot of the games industry, you'll see a lot of wrestling crossover, which is really kind of interesting. But for me, I when I was younger, I thought more that I was going to go towards wrestling. But when I got older, like towards the end of high school, I knew that some way I wanted to get involved in video games. So I started by working at GameStop, which was nowhere close to really being in the industry in a sense. But it got to a certain point where I wanted to do something more than just work retail. So I actually tried to go the video game journalism route. Oddly enough, by not even doing any writing about video games to start, I started my own podcast network in 2012, which I did with some friends, and that led into other people I know who were doing like video game news and like reviews and stuff, to where we kind of merged the podcast network with what they were doing, and then I started writing heavily about video games and stuff on the side as I was working retail. Never really, nothing ever really like took. Gained a small like a very small following to an extent, but then I also had the opportunity to where my other passion came in, which was wrestling, where I became an announcer for a wrestling company in West Virginia, and that actually helped a lot as far as being able to do a lot of public speaking, which is it got me over that fear real quick. So
I never
that
knew
helped
you
me.
actually had a fear of public speaking. I just always assumed it was your jam.
No, in high school, like I was so nervous to do any speeches or anything. Like I could not. I did not. I never wanted to go up and speak
Oh,
in
wow.
public.
Yeah, I
So
was. You were a natural at it or something,
Yeah,
man.
big change.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, podcasting helped a lot with that. Podcasting definitely like got me more comfortable to just talk on a microphone and go. But then pro wrestling is actually what got me out of my shell to be able to do it in front of people. Because after I started announcing for pro wrestling, then I actually started to become part of the show. I became like a character on the shows. I was like the commissioner type person who would make matches or catch the bad guys from cheating, all that kind of stuff. And then at some point, I became a manager, and I was very good at talking to the crowd and getting them into what I was saying, and all that I kind of just learned on the fly, and I realized I was good at it. So that pro wrestling helped in that aspect, but pro wrestling also helped because I started to do other stuff for the company I was working for, because it's a very small company in West Virginia. So I actually started taping the shows with multiple cell phones, essentially, and then I would edit together 2 or 3 camera angles, and then I would do commentary and post production, and that's how I kind of taught myself how to video edit and put together like video packages and stuff like that. So pro wrestling actually helped me in a lot of ways improve my skill set to get to here.
Thank you, pro wrestling.
Right? So it was an interesting journey, but during that time that I was doing pro wrestling, I was working a part-time job as just an associate at a Radio Shack, just because it would give me the time off to do wrestling shows. So I had the flexibility to do shows whenever I was needed, and that's what helped me gain my other skills. But at a certain point, I got a bit burnout in wrestling, and I was just like, all right, I got offered to become a manager at Radio Shack, so I accepted the job and I took that. And then about 4 months later, they closed my Radio Shack. So at that point, right, yeah. So at that point, I kind of I was at a point where I had to figure out what I wanted to do, and I had always wanted to. At a certain point, back in 2010, I was living in Maryland, and I actually wanted to come back home to Ohio so that I could go to school, but I started working and never did. So at this point, I looked into it, and with my age and the grants available and stuff, I could actually go and get my degree. So yeah, I went to school at a local community college here to get my degree in digital media, which would get me more skills, and that's pretty much what I was trying to do. I wanted to get more skills so that I could be more useful to what would become this at Winterborn here. But that was before I knew Winterborn was officially become a thing. I mean, Kent, had said before he always wanted to make his own game studio, and I mean, I always wanted to say, work for it and do something, whether it was just, make the website or do whatever. But I wasn't sure exactly how that would happen. But once Kent was ready, and I was like, yeah, I think I can do this, because I follow the games industry way too much, I would say, because I pay attention to too many things. I always have a podcast going on in the background. Kind of in a way, in a sense, but it gives me that knowledge that I know a lot of the personalities around the industry, and I know who, as far as on the journalism side, who writes about certain things and writes about these types of games, and then that sort of thing. So I mean, once we get to a point where we have something to show off, I know who I should be looking towards that might be interested in the things that we're doing. So, and I think that's a good resource for us. And I love the industry as a whole. I love talking about video games. I love playing everything. I have a very eclectic taste, you could say, for games, because I kind of play a little bit of everything. So yeah, that's kind of what led me to Winterborn.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, bro.
All right, Moody, I'll give you the choice. Do you want to go second or third?
After you, Kent.
All right, just realize you have to go next. There's no one else.
Jack, Boo, where are they at? Come on.
I think Jack's gone forever, and Boo is working. For some reason, Boo has decided he still needs a job that pays him. Whatever.
Yeah, what the heck, dude?
Although I think I can actually kind of talk a little bit about Boo's in my story too, so that'll be nice. So for me, I even before I can remember, apparently I was interested in getting into games, because not that long ago I was at my parents' house clearing out some stuff and found a bunch of essays that I had written in school and they were talking about how I wanted to become involved in the games industry. And at the time, I believe I had always written that I either wanted to be a designer in QA or I wanted to own a game shop. So I assumed that meant I wanted to have a little retail business, which of course I didn't go into that, thankfully, because thanks to Amazon and other online retailers, that's not a thing. Exactly. So for the longest time, I think I thought I wanted to do QA, and I will freely admit that, 8-year-old Kent had no idea kind of the hardships that QA entail. I think I just thought at the time, I thought that QA, you could have that job without having any kind of like specific skill set, which of course is vastly wrong. And quick aside, I think a lot of people have that impression, and I can tell you from a lot of personal experience the difference between a QA person that has a good skill set for QA and the difference between someone who is like just hired on to do that job is night and day. It could not be more different. So, general tip of the hat to all my QA brothers and sisters out there. You guys are awesome. So, sorry about that, but I had to set 8-year-old Kent straight. And so I knew I wanted to do something like that. I didn't really have a path in because, when I was in school, there wasn't really a lot. Games were just that thing that your parents told you were wasting your time with, right? Like, there was no DigiPen, there was no Full Sail, there was no esports leagues. Games were not a viable industry in the eyes of many people. So I actually didn't really do much with development games or computers in general in high school, except for the fact that, like Trevor mentioned, I actually got a job at an EB Games, which at the time, and it became a GameStop, but we actually worked at the same place for a couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my entry point into having something to do with video games, because at least then I was able to basically inform people, right? When people came in and asked questions, I was able to kind of utilize my knowledge to an extent to help them find a game they might like, or, just chit chat with people about things. So that was kind of my avenue into there. And then, so once high school ended, I really didn't have a strong idea of what I wanted to do yet. So I didn't directly go to college like a lot of people did. I think it was about a year where I just basically worked a couple of Joe jobs and my EB Games job and had no idea what I wanted to do. And then I don't remember exactly what triggered it, but someday I realized that I just wasn't really getting what I wanted out of life. Didn't really have that fulfillment. And so I went to same community college Trevor went to, although I think it's a different name now, but at the time it was Jefferson Community College. And I took a programming course just kind of on a whim. Like, I didn't know anything about programming, but I knew that I was semi-literate with computers. So I never actually finished it because I transferred out, but I started an associate's course for computer programming there, computer science. And I found I kind of had a knack for programming and I rather enjoyed it. And then right towards the end of that program I was seeing a lot of ads in probably EGM or Next Gen magazine or Official Xbox magazine, one of the many magazines I was subscribed to at the time, for Full Sail University down in Florida. And they actually specialized, they had a specific programming course for games, which was amazing to me at the time. And, kicked around the idea, and this is where Boo kind of came in. He actually helped push the idea because he had the idea that he wanted to do audio. He's always been interested in music, and they had a game audio program. So we kind of chatted about it for a while and kind of pushed each other and decided, let's give it a shot. And we both just packed up our cars.
Well,
We didn't.
I don't know if you remember either. I was originally supposed to go too.
Oh, I do. Yeah, you're right. You were going to come down, but I think the money didn't come through or something, right?
Yeah, and then, I think at the time I don't think I was ready.
Yeah.
I think I would have probably not done well if I had gone. So
that's a great thing to know, because otherwise you'd be in the boat of spending a lot of money and not having a lot out of it, because it wasn't cheap. It took me a long time to pay that off. But yeah, like, so that was the moment that we decided basically we're doing it. And like I said, we packed up our cars just with whatever we could take. We didn't have beds for a long time. We didn't have anything. And drove down to Florida and went. So that was kind of what got me into the industry as a student. And I got a job out of there. I'm sure I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but a tiny little company called Imagine Engine up in Boston that did like licensed games and like cheap, quick games. So I think my first title was Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And I did Dora the Explorer, Alvin and the Chipmunks, things like that. And then that was kind of my first programming job. And then 10 years later, I kind of feel like I had the skill set to get me into what I always wanted to do, which is have my own little indie studio and work, obviously, on the games that we're hoping to work on. And we are, which is pretty sweet. So yeah, that was my winding tale there, and that covered Boo a little bit too, of kind of how he got into it. So Moudy.
Yeah.
Can't stall anymore.
I know. Honestly, like when it comes to me, I like you said, I think that's actually a really good way to say it, is the winding road. And that's what I think I struggled the most when I tried to really think about, is in a way I could think of so many things that like led up to it, but I was really also trying to think of a lot of definitive moments. And I mean, to start, I guess it'd be that, I'm also one of those kids, from a very young age, I remember playing video games. And, one of those things is like, I'm technically dyslexic and ADHD, but just to throw those in, just only to say that because one of the things I've always struggled with was things like reading books and trying to get into stories. And as much as I tried to, I always just found it like as such a struggle. Like people would be like, you gotta read a book or something that's like, for example, like Harry Potter. And as hard as I could try, I just struggled with it. So it was one of those things, like it was a medium. As much as like I was interested in doing it, I could never, like, I just always struggled with it. Video games and me just being surprised, the artist, it was a very visually striking thing.
You are like, such a stereotypical artist, Moudy. I love it.
You ready? You like just do stereotypes. Here it comes. But so things like cartoons, films, and especially like the video games, like one of my like faintest memories from back in the day, if it wasn't something like Super Mario or like what's that game called? It was like the elevator action one. But you guys remember this game on Nintendo where it was like you had a rifle and there were like cowboys, and it was the first, from my experience, like it's like the first thing like the Wii ever was, where you could like actually point to the screen and shoot. It just sold me on the idea of like, this is crazy. Like there's like a whole nother world in the tube, like literally. And I'm like, I'm using a gun to like shoot it. You can shoot their hats. You can shoot things off. I was like, oh my God. Oh, and they had like Duck Hunt. So it was one of the things, like at a really early age, I was sold. And based on my parents, they always said I've always loved drawing or doing something like that. So things, before you knew it, like characters from anything, like from video games, and the idea of like story building was something that was like, I feel like from an early age was like a seed in me. And as the time went on, I've just continuously always done art. But as I grew, I felt like, I want to say that like I'm sure that happens in any generation for anybody, but when I saw games growing as well, like, I think I recall one of these moments was when, like, I think my parents were watching CNN, and all of a sudden it's like it was literally like one of those things, like it was a 20-second segment, but it was like it was just crazy enough, and I was lucky enough to be right there next to them, and they're like, check out this video game by Konami. It's about a game called Metal Gear, and how like they use visual, like they can hear you and they can see you. What's up with that? Like that's like that kind of thing.
That's a pretty awesome CNN voice you got, Moody.
Yeah. And they're like, anyways, and they moved on. I just remember like my jaw dropped. I was like, the video game is on the news. Like
yeah,
I said,
that was big back in the day. Like, damn kids today don't realize how lucky they have it. But yeah, like hearing about video games in any sort of non-negative light,
yes,
anywhere that wasn't like specifically video games, like it was a rarity and a treat.
Yeah,
which is crazy because like now Forbes freaking writes about video games.
Yeah, and like practically, I feel like pretty much all the big magazines, they have a small outlet that does like video game reviews. It's kind of, yeah, like you said, it's really crazy because it's like before, it's the same time like how comic books weren't the main like thing before. It used to be something that everyone hid, but now it's like, out in the open. So yeah, any moment like I got something like that, I was just like, it was amazing. And also with that, I just love the idea that was my actual introduction to Metal Gear, where it was this moment on CNN where they were talking about how fascinating it was that the AI had the ability to survey and see things in front of them, and if they turned around, you could take advantage of the opportunity. Essentially, like, introducing the whole stealth genre and the sounds and everything like that. So, I mean, to me, it just really felt like that idea of like, I don't know what the phrase is. It's like free real estate on the internet. It's just like these games can really go. It's like it's as far as you want it to go, So I just felt like I was just constantly kind of putting myself beside that. So if I had to like kind of start off really from like my childhood to maybe I guess towards like even college, it was just me essentially just kind of like, in a way, what you were saying, Trevor, just trying to like stay in the ethos, just hear what's going on, see what's happening. And I was trying to find out like what, like as an artist, like what I gravitated to in things. And it was like stories and the characters. So, and obviously, we're doing our own RPG, but RPGs were one of those ones where like, I think we mentioned this a while ago, but back in the day when you had like a PlayStation game and like, it was like Final Fantasy 7 and there was like multiple discs. I just remember that to me, that was the closest thing as being, I'm like, see, it's like a book. I gotta go through all these CDs. It's like, it's a chapter. It's not some like book where I'm just like, I'm looking at the pictures, I'm working here,
Did that convince your parents?
They're like, yeah, sure, whatever, have fun. Like, that kind of thing, I guess. But I mean, they always support me and they always knew that I liked to do art. So I think in that sense, I mean, they were very, like, it was always, they knew that things for like, if it was like my birthday or stuff, it was probably going to be a video game that I was going to ask for, so they definitely, I guess in that sense, they were channeling that and encouraging it. But I'm trying to think now. So, I mean, after college, I actually graduated college with a fine art photography major, but it was all in the scopes of like learning things like composition or anything I could do. But to segue into games, I mean, I'm trying to think. I started to do freelance work, and it essentially was one of those things, as I'm sure many freelance artists know. It's essentially you do what you can do whatever you. What's the phrase? If you get something, you just do it. Try to make sure you can like make a profit, make something going, get something started. But it was all to like lead up to something. Hopefully, being like that dream was like, oh, I'd love to do video games or something like that. But I'm blanking. All right, let me see. But I guess
how did you end up? I guess for me, the one, because I obviously met you at Infinity Ward. Like, how did you get there?
Oh yes, yeah. I guess so. Because like, to be honest, like yeah, my video game career is quite new, and the way I did that, honestly, and if anyone's listening and asking for what did you do? As people say, it truly doesn't hurt to ask. Because when I was in LA, I literally asked everybody, like, and like they say, you're not going around like a manic person, like give me the drugs kind of thing. You just sort of like, if you're talking to somebody, it doesn't hurt to ever be like, hey, like, do you know anybody, that kind of thing. And funny enough, it did lead to something being like, if I remember correctly, it was like someone from my family knew somebody who knew someone's family member that knew somebody at Infinity Ward.
So it was a clear and easy road right there.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where they also say, like, and not to be mad, but it doesn't hurt to ask more than once. It's just like, don't be like, be a human, be like, make sense of it, like understand when you're like overstepping or whatever. But I believe I asked, oh man, I could remember now who I asked, but I do remember I asked like multiple times over the span of like a year. And just during, like, I think if I remember, it was like either winter or something, it finally, someone said, that person finally got to the other person. They're like, yeah, they're actually starting to look for people. And I think and just because, I guess, I hope I made a good impression, because it seemed like we got along just fine. But I think that kind of helped me with getting into like getting further down the line. And I think I was given a test, and the test was I got in Infinity Ward to do UI design with some of the folks there. And I hope you guys are listening, because thank you to everything they taught me, because they taught me so much. But
They
I
better
had to
be
do
listening.
test.
If Fonzie
Yeah.
doesn't listen, I'm going after him.
I know, right? But like, was it the test was to actually draw the interface of a list. I'm trying to remember which the sequence when you're in, I think, Vietnam, and you're in the helicopter. And they asked me to create essentially my own version, my own like interpretation of the UI in that scenario. Like, what would you go about doing, and how would you do it? And essentially, I decided to take a very like authentic route, which was because the whole scene itself is about going back in time during the war. So I said I thought it'd be more fun to actually just kind of keep it to the UI of like how an actual helicopter fighter would like actually be using. So luckily enough that the plane, I wish I could remember the name, because it's one of those like army vehicles kind of things, but the helicopter is actually old enough that the actual like schematics and things are kind of like out in the open. So I was able to actually find that schematic, see a lot of I guess, like, I can't tell you like I'm a professional at the lingo, but kind of understand a lot of the reasoning behind a lot of like placement in the cockpit itself, and was able to actually use that as a primary source to essentially keeping it very video gamey, but also keeping it very true to the helicopter itself. Because my whole thing was, I wanted, obviously, so you can play the game, but it would have been really awesome if someone had actually, let's just say hypothetically, rode in a helicopter like that and was able to be like, oh, this is like where everything's supposed to be, so to speak. So I wanted to have obviously the idea of like immersion, but at the same time have the immersion of, if you actually have reference to this real thing, it connects to you as well. And lucky for me, they resonated a lot with my design, and I got to meet Kent at Infinity War. We worked, we did lots of cool little fun sketches together. We have that, we literally have this wall, and all the walls are like a lot of the walls have whiteboards on them. And we just like stuffed this thing with all kinds of like drawings and whatnot, all these inside jokes.
Oh yeah. Maybe I'll see if I can find a picture at some point. Maybe we can put it up on the website. I have to make sure it doesn't have anything on it.
Yeah. We'll just like first purposely like make it just clearly all censored. Like, this is the only stuff we can show. It's like just can't.
Yeah, it might be. So on that point, that's kind of an interesting side story about kind of how Moudy ended up being our artist. Like how it's the fact that what Moudy said is, Moudy and I actually found out we work really well together where we would take, like if we're in a meeting or something that's going on too long, which often happens, neither one of us are paying that much attention. And so I know you two know, but for anyone listening, I cannot draw. I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I make the most terrible drawings ever. But I have a pretty decent imaginations. I mean, I ran a tabletop game for quite a few years, and this whole world is like something that kind of popped into my mind over the years. So I would end up making these just dumb drawings of all kinds of random crap.
They had a lot of heart, dude. They had a lot of heart, man.
I'm glad you thought that. So yeah, I would make these drawings that were awful. I mean, terrible. But then Moudy would take that kernel of an idea that I had, and then he can actually draw really well. So he would draw this really cool kind of interpretation of it, and we ended up doing that a lot. I'm sure I have the drawings. I'm sure they're packed up since we're getting ready to move, but maybe I'll scan them and put them up somewhere just so people can see them. But interestingly enough, it actually, that kind of core thing of us working together on those stupid little drawings that, you know, didn't mean anything, I feel like have translated really well to our character design. So I can't reveal any specifics, of course, until we are ready to kind of talk about the game. But these characters, which either I've created or, you know, Trevor, any of the kind of people that played the original tabletop game created, we all have these characters that we created a long, long time ago. And so we essentially gave those kernels, like the idea of the character, over to Moudy to draw the concept art. And a lot of times he's taken those, kind of run with it, and came up with something vastly different than we originally had. But it's awesome. So it's kind of doing what we did back then, but in a professional setting where, you know, we are able to bounce ideas off each other really well. And he's helped a lot with making our characters just that much more interesting, both visually and from a design standpoint. So yeah, it's been really cool seeing that transition into a real world kind of application.
Yeah, it's actually, it's like pretty insane to see like this character I created like when I was in my 20s like just come to life because of what Moudy puts into it. And then seeing everybody else's character, because I mean we had a party, that party went for like a few years.
Long time, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean we got to know those characters. I mean those were characters we played, you know, every Friday for a couple years. So I mean it's just super crazy to see those characters, like, and one of them, like the way Moudy did, I'll just say it was Ted's character, because that doesn't tell anybody anything, like
except Ted.
Except, yeah. So like it is very different than what I imagined, but in such an awesome way. Like I was kind of blown away by like the idea and just the imagination that from Moody's mind that he puts into it.
Yeah, agreed. It'll be really exciting when we can finally kind of share some of these concepts with people. We'll actually be able to break down kind of the original ideas and kind of where they ended up. I think
I can't
video.
Like I can't wait till we can we start sharing stuff. Like
I'm trying, man. It's hard. I got a lot of work to do.
Like I'm literally like champing at the bit to just like throw everything out there, but.
No, but I mean, I just want to say, yeah, thank you guys. But I also feel like you guys gave me a really like, you know, I know like Kent's saying what he says about his drawings, but like I sincerely say when I say he's got heart in it is like I feel like the reason I also think we're like that's why like it's really funny. I didn't really think about it till you said it like that. Sometimes like I feel like you did say that to me, but you're right. Like, well, thank God first of all for those long meetings, because had I not done that, like, you know, we wouldn't have realized that connection. I'm like, oh, dude, this is great. Like, because I do remember now when I think about it, like there were times where I was a little bit eager. I'm like, oh, here we go. What are we gonna do this time? Like, you know, but But yeah, so I think we all, when we work with each other to kind of create the characters and eventually even create everything else, it's just been this really cool, like, back and forth, and it just seems to work so well.
Yeah, the team has pretty complementary strengths, I feel like. So it's been the design process has been pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I guess that literally lands me on so from that's literally how we're here now. I'm here in Winterborn trying to help create I guess create the visuals that so we can actually like see what these guys and like the story that you've had since back in the day.
It's time immemorial.
Yeah. So see, guys, I had something. I was ready. I was just like, I wanted to keep things interesting. I didn't have to jot down notes or anything. I didn't mute my mic and like panic.
Well, thank you for keeping us on our toes, Moudy.
I know.
That's why he's here, to keep us on our toes.
Yep.
Breathe.
Don't worry. He always stresses me out come the end of a sprint. I can tell you that much. In fact, the whole team's good at doing that. You guys are going to be the death of me.
Hey, man, I try. I try not to do that.
Oh, I was going to say, you're trying to do that? You bastard.
No, I try not to do that.
Trevor, don't tell him.
It's all a practical joke. Everyone gets their task done on the first day, but then they just mess around until the end, and they're like, haha, surprise.
Surprise, we're done.
You're going to stumble upon like a secret conversation that you're not included in, where we're all just betting on when you're going to have the most gray hair, and we're all betting on how stressed you to get to that point.
Hey, I'm the admin on all these accounts. If I could figure out what the heck I'm doing, I could probably read your informations.
We have totally art stuff. Don't worry, Ken.
Yeah, Ken, we're using AOL Instant Messenger, or just
damn.
you can't hack that.
Let me see if I can remember my AOL login, my ICQ number.
Dude, I know my ICQ number.
That's insane, Trevor. You need to remove that from your brain so you can put something else in there.
I know, like that is like one of the only, like, I remember my ICQ number. I remember there was a game back in the early 2000s that was called it was WWE with Authority. It was an online card game but it looked like wrestling themed, but you built your own decks and you bought cards and all that stuff. I remember my player ID number from that game. Because you had to use it all the time. Like if like people were like sending you cards or something, you would tell them your ID number, and like it's weird, the stupid shit I remember.
I mean, I can't say anything. I remember the title ID for Haunted House on the Xbox 360, which is just a random hexadecimal number. Like you said, because you enter it so many times that you're just like, all right, that's burned into my brain and I can't get it out.
And I'm a stereotypical artist, so I don't remember anything.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah, but remember colors.
I mean, there are days where like I don't remember like what I had to eat like a couple hours ago, whereas like, but it's like you ask me my ICQ number, I'm like right there.
Well, good. I'm glad that we can at any time quickly get your ICQ number.
I guess we just discovered what the next podcast is. It's memory, dude.
Yeah. What random shit do you remember?
Oh, man.
Yeah. It's either a train wreck or the most weirdly interesting thing, I guess.
Well, I mean, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about escrow, so who knows where this podcast will go.
It's really hard to say. And it's funny because like when you mentioned GameStop, like I remember the exact moment I got my job at GameStop, or at EB at the time.
I don't remember the exact moment, but I sure remember how you got it. And it was, you would basically just come to the store and alphabetize all the games on the shelves, even though you didn't work there. And then you would just like sit in the corner and play your DS until somebody needed your help. So basically, you just started working until they started paying you. And it worked.
I mean, that's pretty much true.
That's
I had
hilarious.
nothing. I had nothing better to do.
It was
I wasn't
amazing.
going to. I wasn't going to school. I didn't have a job. Like I was just like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go hang out with Kent. And then when Kent wasn't there, I started hanging out with Tony, and but like the exact moment though is our manager at the time, Ed, was there, and he was by himself, and he was busy helping somebody, and then some guy was like asking about Doom 3, and I told him all about the collector's edition, like it came with the original Doom and all this other stuff, and like, and then he was like, all right, I'm gonna buy it, and then like once that guy left, Ed was like, Trevor, do you want a job? And I was
Good
like,
old
yes.
Ed. Oh, speaking of Ed, we should get him on here sometime to talk about Half Circle Forward.
Yeah, he just started a YouTube channel, Half Circle Forward. I think the Twitter is HCF Gaming, right?
Sounds right.
I'll have to double check that, but yeah, he was our GameStop manager, at least our first one.
So yeah, he's a pretty good guy. He's doing like a lot of unboxing and stuff.
A lot of
And
unboxing,
a
a
lot
lot
of
of
Switch
reviews for.
games.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of Switch reviews, unboxing of like the limited edition games and stuff like that that you don't see everywhere. Yeah, the Twitter is HCF Gaming. I had that right.
Yeah, feel free to check him out. Little shout out for Ed there while we're on the topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since he actually helped us get into where we are now. So
yeah, and yeah, I mean, it kind of started us on our journey in a sense. So, all right.
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think that'll wrap us up for today. For this week. So again, Kent, Moody, thank you for being on today.
Thank you, Trevor, and Moody,
You, bro.
and me. Thanks
And
all
you,
around.
Ken. Trevor.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. You are welcome. You're all welcome.
Now that we have the triangle of thanking done with.
We're very polite on this podcast. We got to make sure everyone is both thanked and welcomed.
Welcome, thank you. Welcome, thank you, welcome. We also want to thank you guys for listening. We appreciate all the support. We've had a lot more listeners than we ever expected to. Well, at least early on. So we absolutely appreciate it. If you like us enough, please go to iTunes and rate and review us, because that helps us be seen by more people, so more people can listen and enjoy our discussions as we slowly drive each other crazy. And if there's anything that you would like to ask us, you can contact us at socialmedia@winterborngames.com, and I will read every email. And if we get enough questions, we will start doing a question and answer segment on the podcast when we have enough in the old bucket.
Literally, we have a bucket.
Yeah, it's a bucket full of questions. There's no questions in it yet, but there could be, and it could be yours. Then on that note, if you're a game dev with a game studio and you would like to talk about your game studio, you can also email us at that same email address, and we would like to chat with you about your game studio and how you built it and all that good stuff. So again, everybody, thanks for listening. Rate, review, subscribe, and good night.
What if it's not night?
You just ruined it, Ken.
We're still recording. Stop recording.
And that's this week's episode. Remember, you can follow us at Winterborn Games on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, pretty much everywhere, Twitch. We're doing some stuff on that channel as well. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Next week, we will be taking a week off. It's Labor Day, so we're not going to have an episode that week. So I'll probably just post a repeat in the feed so that you can have something to listen to. But the week after that, I have some interviews lined up, so we should have someone coming in for an interview on the show. I don't want to say who it is in case, something happens where we can't record or something like that. But the plan right now is to bring another interview with another great indie game developer. So that's the plan for that. And again, thanks for listening. We appreciate your support, and we'll be back in a few weeks.